show their pictures here on the page. And so we have 4. I'm waiting for Miss Carolyn to show up here. I know she's probably, yep, I see her coming on here. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce their by name. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start off with one, and then you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves, what you do, your specialty, and a little bit about yourself, and then just pick the next person in line. And from there, once we have everyone introduced, we'll go ahead and start with our conversation. Again, for those of you who are joining us just now, tonight we are talking with a group of ladies from Revolutionary Change Counseling. We're going to be talking about mental health. We can't talk about mental health enough right now. Even pre-COVID, it was a subject that I know our school board, including Karen Perez, found it important enough to have a mental health tour with many of our schools. But even now with COVID going on, it is just multiplied and exponentially with what our students and our parents and our families are dealing with when it comes to anxiety, stress, and so many other things that go along with that. So with all that said, please sit back, enjoy what you're going to hear about tonight. Hopefully you'll get some of your questions answered. And we are going to take questions if we have time. So please, on your Facebook stream, just go ahead and put those questions in the chat box, and we'll do our very best to answer those questions after we go through the ones we already have. So with that, Ms. Shauna Wilson, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then you can just kind of pick who's next.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Frank, for having this discussion today and having Revolutionary Change Counseling share on this really, really important topic. So my name is Shauna Wilson. I am the clinical director and founder of Revolutionary Change Counseling. We are based in Apollo Beach, and we've recently expanded to Orlando, Jacksonville, and Miami, which is very exciting. Also, as a therapist, I work a lot with children, teens. I have experience in working with family court systems as well. I'm a mother of a 4-year-old preschool student. So these are very exciting times for us as a family. And I also do some faith-based counseling as well as working with populations with people of color. Who would like to introduce next?
I'll go. Hi, I'm Caitlin McGinnis. I'm also a licensed mental health counselor, and I actually work in a middle school setting. So I specialize in adolescents in a school setting. I treat depression, anxiety, trauma histories, and everything that kind of goes along with that. I'm also a certified accelerated resolution therapist, and I also conduct assessments on children in the foster care system. Okay, I'm gonna popcorn to Ariel.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here tonight. I am a registered clinical social worker. I'm extremely passionate, and I specialize in clinical work with children, teens, families, young adults, and especially those within the community of color regarding trauma, adoption, parenting, and intergenerational trauma. Ms. Carolyn?
Yeah, I think that leaves me. I'm Carolyn Cole. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but a fairly recent one because I've been an educator in and around Hillsborough County and for the county for the past 35 years. Right now, I do assessments for children in the foster care system, but I treat and counsel with families and couples ages teen to adult, and I'm also a a certified grief counselor. That's the other thing I am. Yeah. So where does that leave us?
There we go. So we're there. Okay, good. Sorry there, I had muted myself, so I didn't make a lot of noise. I ask that question of myself all the time. What do I do? I'm right with you. So thank you all for joining us again. Real quick, for those of you just joining us, I know I just set up a watch party on my end. If you're just joining us, we have 4 ladies who are part of Revolutionary Change Counseling, and tonight we're going to talk about mental health. and we're going to hit on some questions that were sent in the last couple weeks, and possibly some additional information. And if we have time and you are wanting to, please send in your questions on the chat, and Amy Marie's in the background. She will ask those questions later on. So please feel free to ask something that's on your mind and on your heart. So let's start this off with the questions I have. And I'm going to direct this one at Miss Carolyn. And I was given permission to call them all by their first name, but I'm still going to say Miss. How do I help my child cope with stress related to school and their grades?
Oh, that's such a great question, and particularly now. I mean, COVID is just complicating things exponentially. And I mean, imagine if as adults we're struggling, imagine how much more so our children might be. But how that struggle is manifesting is going to vary, and what the parents can do, of course, is going to vary depending upon the age of the child. For example, if you've got younger children in the home, you may see some regression in behaviors. You may see that there's a lot more clinging type of behaviors. They are really in need of age-appropriate explanations of what's going on. And if you go to the other end of the spectrum, depression amongst the teenagers is on the rise, and we're seeing it as a result of primarily the physical distancing and the missing out of so many of the events. Now, of course, in revolutionary change and across the country, online counselors and therapists are providing telehealth appointments. And for some upper elementary to teenage kids, that's often in an environment, a platform that's more comfortable for them than adults tend to think it is. But if you stop and think about the fact that every single adult that's listening to us tonight has anxiety, think about how enhanced that is at home. The kids feel that. They have to feel that. There's that undercurrent of anxiety that's rushing around in every one of the homes. And it's combined with a situation where the rules are changing for everybody every single day. And that's got to have an impact on the kids. Now, when you talk about the younger ones, Shauna, those 4 to 7 year olds, and you start looking at that clinginess, sometimes one of the things that's really needed is sticking to a schedule. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the same old schedule. You may need to reinvent a schedule for what's working in today's environment. Now, the kids that are, let's say, maybe 7, 10 years old, who've graduated beyond the early elementary and are into later elementary years, they're probably going to be more aware of the current situation. And they may be scared, not fearful only for their own health, but this is where they're likely to develop fear for family members. And you may see that demonstrated by anger, some irritability. And I think one of the best ways to handle that is to spend as much time with them as possible. Remain available to them, answer their questions. And they're not too young, even the 4-year-olds are not too young to start using some relaxation techniques with them. Deep breathing, what we call square breathing. Even early mindfulness exercises that even small children can do progressive muscle relaxation where you just squeeze the oranges and then let them go. And they think it's fun, and it can really help relieve, some of that tension in the nervous system. But with those other kids, keep them active as much as possible. Encourage them to go outdoors. The ones that I think I have a heart for, and Caitlin, maybe you can speak to this also, is those 10 to 13, 14-year-olds, those middle school kids. Because the middle school kids are bearing the brunt of the online school. Now, middle school is tremendously stressful anyway. They've got more homework, more expectations, greater expectations, and a lot less guidance, generally speaking. And even in middle school, even those children who are motivated to do well in school most likely are lacking the executive functioning abilities in order to self-direct and in order to schedule their own school time now. So I'd urge those parents to have realistic expectations about the schoolwork and acknowledge the time that's spent on the schoolwork more than the actual product, and validate. Tell them that you know how hard this is for them. It's not fair that they should have to do school this way. Sometimes just hearing this validation from a parent can go miles into calming a child's frustration. And those teens, oh my gosh, they're missing so much, so many things that they wanted to expect. How do you have a virtual prom? You know, really? And the cancellation of all sorts of milestone events for these kids. And you know, what's I think very difficult for the teenagers is that because of COVID, they're finding themselves trapped in the home with the very family that they're supposed to be learning to gain their independence from. And they're cut off from the peer relationships that provide the support for them to do that. And as if adolescence wasn't a big enough change for them, they can be particularly overwhelmed when they get this additional traumatic events that they're seeing all the time, and they're seeing us as adults express worry and sadness. And that's what you're going to see from them. They're going to pretty much mimic us. A lot of worry, a lot of sadness. Watch out for unhealthy eating. Watch out for unhealthy sleeping habits. Watch out for newly manifesting anxiety, attention, lack of concentration. Excuse me. As adults, we can help them cope, and we can also be sure that we're ready to facilitate professional help if they need it. I think it's a matter of listening. Anybody else have anything to jump in?
Oh, Carolyn, I agree completely. You hit the nail on the head when you said we're expecting children to regulate when they don't have the executive functioning to do so. When us as adults, even with what we're going through, we have executive functioning, and this has still been tough on us. So we do really need to exercise even more patience than we normally would with our kids, right? From high school down to the 3-year-olds, just more patience. That's key, and listening, like you said.
Yeah, I also would like to add to what Carolyn and Caitlin are sharing is, in the midst of everything that's been happening, this is a really great time for self-care for students and parents. One thing that I really, really emphasize a lot in therapy is the importance of self-preservation, where you really honor your limits. And know what your needs are, and focus on the needful things that happen over the course of a day.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of jump in with what you guys mentioned as well of, Carolyn, you hit the nail on the coffin, normalizing this experience. I think a lot of times it's human nature when things are uncomfortable or change is happening that we want to alter it. We want it to be how it was before. And I think it's very important in this experience for all of us, for the children and even for the parents and the adults and caregivers, that we stay present in this moment. Though the expectation isn't what we would like it to be, we wish we could be back in school. We wish, we didn't have to do Zoom meetings or, Zoom classroom sessions. However, this is what it is. And being present in that moment together as a family, that's what's really going to make the difference. And validation, one thing I've been encouraging my family in therapy sessions with their kiddos is, saying, hey, this does suck. I don't like it either. And just having that connection with your child and them hearing that you too are frustrated, it kind of lessens that frustration so that you guys can make a plan. Maybe it's having a chat with the teacher and saying, hey, my kid needs more breaks. Or maybe it's, even coming up with a support group with other parents, seeing what you guys can do. Maybe you create a more interactive experience for your children. But I think really kind of normalizing this experience, and that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be frustrated in this moment.
So, Ariel, you said something at the very end. I was actually had a follow-up question to that, but you addressed it a little bit. But I was going to ask you, do you feel like it's healthy, and maybe it's an age-appropriate answer, to speak to the teacher or a counselor, or can that be sometimes counterproductive?
No, absolutely. And that's a great question, Frank. Because, I think there is that hesitation, right? So it's like teachers are struggling. I tip my hats to them. Therapists, we're going through the trenches, but teachers are really the frontline essential workers that are giving their all, getting creative. And, the old saying, it takes a village, right? Children and their teachers, they're part of their support network. The more we're all collaborating and communicating, the more we can support our students and our kiddos. And also parents are more informed of what they can be doing at home. So I think it's essential to have that communication and that connection, to reach out to the teacher. Hey, I'm kind of noticing this. You never know. You might be speaking up to something that a teacher is like, that's a great idea. I was also noticing this in my classroom. Let's make a plan. Thank you for mentioning that. So I always encourage, don't feel like you're being a burden, reach in. This is a great time for parents to tap in with teachers and say, hey, how can I support? Is there something I could be doing? And I think that's really what's going to make the difference during this pandemic, is that we are stronger as communities together than we are segregated from one another.
I would love to add to that. Oh, I'm so sorry, Frank.
No, go.
I'd love to add to that, just because I have the unique privilege of being in a school for 40 hours a week. So I'm actually there and able to see how the students best operate. And I can say without a doubt, having a relationship with their school counselor, having at least one teacher they feel they can really depend on for emotional support, and having even the random, the lunch lady has been emotional supports to my clients. Having more support at the school equals a better outcome. So parents should absolutely be leaning on those supports. There are supports like that in a school for a reason, and I don't see them used nearly as enough as they should be used. So like Ariel was saying, don't feel like a burden. That's what they're there for. They're there to support our students emotionally.
Awesome. Wow. You guys knocked it out of the park already. I think, and I'm going to move on to the next question, but I know Carolyn said it, and I know Ariel said it as well. The word validate. I think that's, the fact that I guess sometimes we just need to tell them that it sucks. It stinks. I feel for you. I'm with you. I'm behind you. I'm in your corner, because we haven't had to deal. And then sometimes that's what our kids need, is just know that we're in the corner with them. We're behind them. So I love that. So thank you all for that. Caitlin, back to you on this one. So what are the best strategies to keep your student motivated when they're struggling emotionally?
This is a great question, because we are all struggling emotionally, I'd say, during COVID, right? So the volume's been turned up a little bit on this emotional struggle. So I did, when I was thinking about the answers to this question, I was thinking more directing my answers towards teachers, but parents are kind of stepping into that role of teacher right now, right, with the at-home learning. So this also can apply for parents. What I would say is consider starting class or starting the school day with a mindful minute of deep breathing. Whether this is collectively as a class or just your students at home, this is going to help students become present in the moment and focused on classwork, and not the drama that was inevitably happening in the hallway or on their phone when they were just texting their friends. It's going to get them into the school mode. Now, something else I would say is understand that children's concerns are often trivialized by us adults, and that actually can exacerbate their distress. So going back to that word of validate, we want to make sure our kids are feeling heard and validated when they're having a rough day. So as a teacher, if you see one of your students is struggling, I would suggest taking them to the side in this quiet voice saying, hey, I can see you're having a rough day. why don't you take a couple minutes, write me a letter, write something down on paper, or for the younger kiddos, draw a picture about how you're feeling. What that does is that lets the child know, like, you see that there's something going on. You're not going to make a big thing of it, but you're letting them know, I see something's going on and I'm here for you. And then what that does is it just lets them know that they're not alone, right? And parents, you can do this too. Sometimes I tell my parents and clients to use a journal that they pass back and forth throughout the day. And they almost like write notes to each other. It's a great bonding experience as well. Now, another thing that's really great for teachers is considering using a chill pass, which can be a small laminated pass that you give to students when they're in distress. And on the back of it, you'll have a scale written down. So 1 through 10, 1 being totally chill, can handle it. 5 being, I'm a little stressed, but I think I can handle it on my own. And then 7 and above being, I need help from an adult. This is going to teach children to self-regulate. They're going to start to recognize, well, I think I can handle this on my own. Now, if they do need you as the adult, what I would suggest is letting them use the chill pass to chill for about 15 minutes or so, and let them know when you're ready, go grab a fidget, come back and get your work done. And when I say fidget, I mean stress ball, squishy, stretchy stuff, Play-Doh, just something tactile. It makes such a difference if a child, and when I say child, I'm talking 3 to 18. I mean, I use a little fidget too. Having something in your hand really can help you focus. And if you combine that with a student feeling validated and heard by the adult in the room, you're going to see more motivation to get work done. And I just want to add one last point, and this is more directed towards parents. At home, I think we can all agree that we're stressed and anxious across the board. And anxiety is what happens when we feel like we're not in control. And so to help us gain a little bit more control, what I suggest doing is something called the circles of control. So you draw a small circle and you draw a big circle around it. In the small circle, you're going to write every single thing you can control. In the outer circle, you're going to write every single thing you can't control. This is a really great visual aid to help us feel like, okay, wait, I've got this. Look at all the stuff that I'm able to handle. And at the same time, it reminds us what our priorities are. Anything in that outer circle is not worth us freaking out about because we can't control it. For example, we can't control when online school starts or ends, right? So we'll put that in the outer circle. So those are just a few suggestions I have as far as maintaining that motivation.
I love that. That's great. I love those exercises a lot. I like the chill thing. That was kind of cool. I have to remember that one. I wish I would have known that a long time ago with my kid. I could have said, okay, where are you at here? Instead of him shutting down and not wanting to answer me, I would have given him an opportunity to express where he was at. Anyone else on that at all? Okay, and just so you all know, you're getting a lot of great feedback on Facebook. Regina, who is our VP of membership for Hillsborough County Council, mentioned morning meditation. She kind of agreed with y'all on that. She is a parent liaison here in Hillsborough County, so so you got a nice little endorsement. And a lot of people are just talking about the deep breathing, the validation, the self-regulation, and the journaling as being great ideas. So thank you all for that. That's good stuff, really good stuff. And it's very applicable too. It's not just, it's putting, and this is something I'm gonna get to at the very end with a student who asked this question. It's putting actions to the words. And I had a student say, where's the actions of doing a lot of these things? We keep talking about it, but what are we doing? And these are things that can be done daily. So the next one is for Ariel. How do you convince an older teen to see a counselor or therapist if they're reluctant?
Yes, Frank, thank you so much for this question, because it is one that frequently I experience and I hear from teens and older students and parents when they're seeking services. As we know, there's a massive stigma that's attached to seeking therapy. And I feel like just now in 2020, it's being consistently dismantled. And what I really want to say out to the students and the parents who are watching this is that it's okay to feel reluctant and uncomfortable and fearful about starting therapy. The thought of sharing your most inner thoughts and feelings with someone you hardly know is uncomfortable, and it can be scary, and that's okay. So I want to briefly share some tips that can help a child or a teen, if they're feeling reluctant about therapy, or a parent, you're struggling to try to get your child to want to engage. So tip number one I want to kind of give out to everyone is normalizing it. Again, it's completely okay to feel uncomfortable with meeting with someone and talking about your thoughts and your feelings and things that are going on in your external and internal world. So normalizing this for your teen, kind of like what we mentioned earlier with our question, validating that, and having an open conversation, exploring why you feel therapy would be helpful. A lot of times I'll have, a teen sit in my office and they'll say, I don't know why I'm here, So exploring with your kid and saying, I'm kind of noticing you're a little bit angry, or you've been kind of down. And I think, or how would you feel about talking with someone? I want to support you with this. That makes a world of a difference, and it kind of brings that wall down that a child or a teen might have. Tip number two, discuss and explore together what therapy is and isn't. As I mentioned, there's a huge stigma regarding therapy and mental health, in our world. And I think it's important of having a conversation and exploring together, researching, reaching out to, your the counselors in your school, and other supports you have, and kind of exploring and defining together as a family what is therapy and what isn't. One thing I want to make a disclaimer is therapy is not for crazy people. I always say it's for human people. We're all human. We all struggle, and we all need help sometimes, and that's okay. Therapy is for support. It's for growth. It's for healing. And it's really it's for a safe place for you to feel heard, to improve relationships or even friendships. Exploring this with your teen and identifying areas and places in their life that they want to change is another way to kind of reduce that barrier of feeling reluctant and not wanting to engage. My tip number three is allow your teen to be part of the therapy selection process. A lot of times, parents come to me or, to our office, and they're selecting therapy, but the kid or the teen really has no idea of what's going on, or, even if I'm the best fit for them. So allowing your child to ask questions when it comes to deciding on a therapist, matching a therapist and involving your teen and selecting a therapist that matches their personality, their identified culture, ethnicity, and orientation, communication style, and their mental health concerns. And the most important tip that I have here, tip number four, do not, and I repeat, do not make therapy punitive. Though it can seem easier to force your child to go to therapy because they need it, it can actually be very harmful to the therapeutic relationship and the process in the long run. And in addition, in my clinical experience, it can also be very detrimental in the future when they are older and they might need to go get mental health services. So don't make it punitive. Don't make it feel like a punishment. Again, the beauty of therapy, as I like to always say, is for a client, young or old, is to be able to exist in a safe place that allows you to not only be vulnerable, but a place that allows you to authentically show up as yourself. To be seen and to be heard. Therapy interventions and modalities that we use, they're just a small piece, a small part of the success of therapy. The biggest success is a client's ability, a child or a teen's ability to trust and build a safe therapeutic relationship with their therapist. And when a client, child, or teen, when they feel safe and they feel that they can trust their therapist, that is when the real work of progress and healing can begin. So if anyone want to kind of, jump in and add to that.
Hi, me again. I feel like I keep jumping in. So everything I was like, so sitting over here wanting to do the clap reaction. That was all so great. And I was thinking this one sounds so kind of, I don't know, simple, but something that really works for me with my teens is reminding them everything you tell me is between us. I have a lot of teens come in and they think I'm going to call their parents immediately after and tell them every single thing. And I absolutely will not. I do not. And I let parents know that that's not going to happen. Parents will know if someone's in danger, but beyond that, you're not going to know the details of what's going on. And that is how we achieve that trust that Ariel was talking about. And that usually helps kind of open the door for the teens once they realize they can actually share their secrets.
Thank you for jumping in there and making that point, Caitlin. I can't stress how important that is, that these clients, these teens know that they can trust us, that we, no, we're not going to go, and I have teens ask me all the time, well, what if I come in here and tell you that, I'm doing drugs every weekend? I try to make them understand, I hope that sometime you will get to the point where you feel like you can tell your parents that yourself. But that's not my job. My job is to support you and keep you safe. And that doesn't involve telling your parents everything that I know. Only if you're in real danger. Only if you're in real danger of self-harm. Ariel, that was a great, yeah, I'm inspired.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of add a point, Frank, if you don't mind as well. I think a big part of, kind of adding in with that confidentiality piece, parents, you are absolutely a key important, because I know there's parents are automatically in the crowd like, girl. But I want to kind of, you guys are important to therapy. But when we're talking about teens and their stage of development, this is when they're developing as a person. And when addressing issues, mental health concerns, anxiety, depression, all of these things, trauma, it's important for them to feel a safe outlet. I always joke with teens and I say therapy is the one place where I'm not here to tell you what to do. I remember being a teen and you're so used to hearing everyone telling you, you need to do this, you need to be applying for this, you need to be growing in this, and why aren't you, why aren't you doing this? And this is the one place where you just show up. And we're here to work on, how do I support you and guide you to the potential that I know that you can be? But I need you to see it for you. And I'm just here for the ride. I use the analogy, of therapy is that I'm a fairy godmother. I'm here to get you that slipper. I'm here to get you to that ball. And once you have reached that potential of whatever that life might be for you, I have to fly away and I have to go to the next. So I really want to encourage parents, understanding the process of therapy just for yourself. It's about yourself. When your kid going there, it's about them. When you guys are doing family work, it's about you guys. So there's layers to it, but I want everyone to kind of walk away knowing, don't make therapy punitive. It's a beautiful process and it's there for healing. And having your teen collaborate with you is not only going to strengthen your family dynamic, but it's also going to empower them later on if they have to return back to therapy. Because, there's never too much or too little of therapy. I'm, like Oprah with the therapies. Everyone gets some therapy. But you can never have too much. Thank you, Frank.
That was awesome. And you hit on, I want to kind of just reemphasize a couple of those things that you said, all of you said. And I was like Caitlin, same thing. I was like ready to clap too, because there was some really, and there's some things there that you said that I think as parents, it really calls us out, because the one thing you talked about first, I'll say, is the being punitive, not doing it and to be punitive, because in the future, if we do want to see somebody, we're going to have those negative feelings, just like anything else. It's going to be brought up, and we may be apprehensive to want to meet with somebody just because of how it made us feel before. Yeah. The other thing too, and parents, I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to myself, and Ariel said it better than I can say it. We need to hands off. We need to stop with being the helicopter parents and allow our therapists and our clinical psychologists to do what they are trained to do and have that trust factor. And I know we feel like as parents, we don't have control we want to know what's wrong with our kid, and fix our kid. What's wrong with our kid? But sometimes we just, we need to back off because maybe we're part of the problem. And I know it's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of our parents out there. And I'm pointing at myself. But it's a hard thing for us parents to let go of our kid because we feel like if we coddle them and we hold them that we can protect them. But really, in essence, we're making the situation much more difficult. So I appreciate you saying those things. All right, so real quick, I want to kind of, for those of you who joined us a little bit late, first of all, shame on you. You should have been here on time. Second of all, I want to just kind of reintroduce our group here, our panel. I won't say to my right because I'm sure people are looking differently, but Ms. Shauna Wilson is a licensed mental health. What's the rest of that? I'm sorry. Clinical therapist.
Licensed mental health counselor.
Counselor, that's what I meant to write. I can't even read my own writing anymore. That's what happens when you get old. Miss Carolyn Cole is a licensed marriage and family therapist. I did write that properly. Ariel, is it Bracy or how do you say it?
Bracy.
Bracy, okay.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, she's working for her master's in social work, and we're just going to go ahead and just give her her honorary master's tonight because I think she's already.
I have my master's.
You have your master's, okay.
Yep.
So you are soon to be a licensed clinical social worker. Okay, so I had to finish the sentence there. I couldn't get that out. You've earned every penny of it already. You've done an amazing job. All of you have. And then Ms. Caitlin McGinnis is a licensed mental health professional as well. And you work, you don't specifically with adolescents, but you do work with them pretty regularly, which I think is.
Yes, I'm actually in a middle school setting. So I specialize in adolescents in a middle school setting.
Yeah. God go with you on that one. That was the worst 3 years of my life. And I didn't even, so that's wonderful. So I just want to let everybody know who we're speaking to tonight. They all represent Revolutionary Change Counseling. They're here to share their knowledge and talk to us parents and our students and our kids on what we're all going through right now with mental health, with anxiety and stress. I mean, I can't imagine. I guess in some ways, stress and anxiety can be a good thing, and is what I was told. But I guess the way that we kind of allow it to consume us, it becomes a negative for us. But I'll stop talking because obviously I'm not the one with any type of initials and acronyms behind my name. I will move on here. So I'm going to jump one because we have not directed a question at Miss Shauna Wilson. So Miss Wilson, how do you help a student that has lost all motivation and sense of their future?
Yeah, this is a great question. And we've gotten so much already out of all of the therapists within the group here, so much knowledge and information, but we're in the midst of this 2020 of a year. And so it's actually really common to have these emotions and these thoughts of not feeling motivated to go through the day. And so specifically to students, because there's been so much adjustment and change that motivation to go to e-learning or go to the brick and mortar definitely has been a struggle. One thing I've been encouraging some of the older teens is that this is just a chapter and it's not your entire story. 2020 is 1 year in the chapter of life that happens for you. And though this has been a challenging chapter of this story, we still have 2021, we have 2022. There are other things to begin to prepare for your future. This is also really important regarding motivation specifically, because it can be a warning sign that your mental health is starting to decline. So this is a signal to your mind and your body that we need to get back on track in terms of your mental health and begin to reach out and get connected to resources that are helpful or supports in the community that can be helpful. And so another thing that is also really helpful when you look at motivation is the importance of remembering that there are rewards for becoming motivated daily. So really encouraging students to see the light at the end of the tunnel that we're pushing through, but that good behavior equals rewards for, privileges or fun activities. Good grades means scholarships or other opportunities. And so just remembering that this is a silver lining kind of year. And so as much as there are things that are difficult where you don't feel motivated, it actually is an opportunity to begin to set some new goals and do some new things. Another tip that's really helpful is to encourage realistic small goals. I don't think a lot of us or families or students have celebrated wins as much as we should. And the reality is that there's still wins that are happening, right? Like we still have students that are making great grades and seniors that are graduating and students that are getting promoted. So I think it's really important to, even despite everything that's going on around us, to still celebrate those small wins, even small wins during the school day, right? Where it's been the umpteenth hour of e-learning, everyone's tired, but yes, you passed that test. I think those small wins are really, really important to celebrate. And again, it adds to the next chapter and provide some hope that this is a moment of time that will pass.
Anyone else want to add to that? That was great stuff.
Sure, I'll add something.
Oh.
So the small wins that Shauna was talking about is so true. And I just want to let parents and teachers know, don't ever doubt the power of your words. Using your words to let someone know that you're proud of them, you saw the hard work they did, that means so much. And sometimes I hear from parents, well, why am I going to praise my kid for something they should already be doing? Even if they should already be doing it, using your words to let them know you're proud and you noticed it is actually going to, it's going to almost train them, like Pavlov's dogs, to keep doing that, right? We all love being noticed, maybe not in a public forum, but we all like to be noticed for something we're doing well. So don't doubt the power of your words. You don't have to go out and get a fancy gift every time to show a child that you're proud of them.
Absolutely. And Franca, if you don't mind, I want to kind of piggyback off Caitlin. Caitlin, that was perfectly said. A little activity I want to kind of share with families and students out there that I've done with clients and families is create a little jar, for each family member, and each thing that you notice, and especially with us all being home, right? We're stuck all in the, kids in one room, parents in one room, things you notice. Your kid picked up the dishes, they let their little brother or little sister play with a video game. They, took the trash out, and put little thank you notes. And at the end of the day, sit down and kind of read them together as a family. Those little moments of connection, just like Caitlin said, not only allow your child to feel improved self-esteem, but it also, again, improves family dynamics and connection. Kids look forward to, as much as sometimes we feel, especially the older, children and teens, that they don't want to be bothered, they still love to hear, I'm proud of you. Good job. Keep up the good work. And those little pieces of communication, though it seems so insignificant and small, make a world of a difference in behavior and interactions and overall the family dynamic that you guys are existing within.
Ariel, that was great. And it made me remember raising 4 children. And in our household, it was called Catch Them Being Good. Because we're so anxious to get, we can catch them being bad without any trouble. But we always called it, catch them being good, catch them being good.
Well, thank you. And again, great applications. And as you guys continue to talk, I keep feeling more convicted as a terrible parent I am. You guys have so many great things I wish I would have known. The words, I mean, just the saying of the words are saying you're proud. I mean, I remember telling my son a few years ago, hey, I was really proud of you doing that. And I got that, that look like I had never said that to him before. And I had to kind of examine, have I ever told him that before? And I'm like, I know I have, maybe he just didn't listen. But the point is whether I did it or not, if he's not hearing it, then I'm not doing my job as a parent. And so great stuff.
And can I
All right.
add to
Go ahead.
Frank really quickly? There's grace for every parent. We're learning our children as they grow and as they develop. And just to add to what everyone was sharing about the importance of sharing words and encouraging your child, it's really important to also know your child's love language. And so there's a book called The 5 Love Languages for Children or for Parents. And it highlights the ways to communicate love and connecting with your child that's really validating for them. So you have words of affirmation, physical touch, gifts, quality time. I'm missing one if someone wants to chime in, but these are all really, really helpful in communicating, and it's never too late to reconnect with your child. So let's say, for example, time has gone and you haven't connected or spoken their love language. Every day is an opportunity to start over and try again.
Is that also by, I think, Gary Smalley and John Trent? Same people do that one?
Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman, not Gary Smalley. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I remember reading that one as part of marriage counseling or marriage before we're getting married. Great book. And yes, it had some, and it's an easy read too. So now, is there one specifically for families or kids or?
Yeah, so it's the 5 Love Languages for Children.
Okay, I did not realize that. Okay, very interesting. We're not going to promote it, obviously, but it is out there. We can't stop you from buying it. So good. And I loved also, I want to tell you, I loved when you used the term celebrate the wins. That's something that I really talked to our youth group about is those little wins in life. They mean a lot. We got to remember those. But you really put it in perspective. This year, more than any other year, we have to really celebrate those wins. Maybe that's all we get sometimes is the little ones. So, and I do have to argue about one thing. You may say that 2020 is just 1 year, but this has got to be the longest year ever. Are you sure it's only 365 days? So
it has been one of the longest years ever, but we're in the final stretch.
We're in the final stretch. Yep. I did have a question. Jen Sutherland, who's our military liaison, a wonderful advocate for our military families and just an all around awesome person anyway. She asked a question. Let me see if I pull it up on my phone. Do any of these awesome therapists, counselors, social workers work with TRICARE or military insurance?
Yes, we do. We actually are in network with TRICARE Standard and TRICARE Prime. And over the course of this pandemic, if you do need telehealth services, there actually is no cost. So TRICARE is covering all counseling services unlimited as we're under this state of emergency for the nation.
Okay, very good. Jen, I hope you got that answer. That's a great question. And thank you for asking that. Next question is, we're going to go to Caitlin. I know you like to always add on. So this time you get to lead off. How's that? This is good for you. Do you have any suggestions for safe online social outlets for teens and preteens that do not include social media?
So yes and no. This was a tough question. So kudos to whoever submitted it because it was definitely a tough one because social media rules the airwaves right now. But I did think about something that I've actually done myself during this pandemic. There is a website called netflixparty.com, and it actually allows several people to watch the same movie at the same time. And there's a chat feature as well, and it is free. And that was a really, really great and different way to connect with friends since we've all had to be separate. And so the only catch with that one is that you do have to have access. Everyone has to have access to Netflix to use that. So there's that. But I also feel like I would be doing you all a disservice if I didn't touch on social media and how it can be used in a safe way, because like I said, it does kind of rule the airwaves in 2020. Social media is scary. It is, because it's not like back in the day where you could send your kids outside, look out the window, see who they're talking to on the playground. The playground of social media is vast and we don't have control over it, or it can feel like we don't have control, but there are some things we can do. So it is really central, honestly, to how kids are socializing these days. So I would suggest having a really important conversation with your kids about expectations around social media. And you can actually compare it using the metaphor of a learner's permit, right? We don't just get our driver's license. We have to get a learner's permit. We have supervision. We have to drive with an adult. And that's to ensure that we learn how to drive safely before we get our license. And when we have our license, there's still rules we have to follow, right, in order to keep our license. So having a conversation with your child about how social media monitoring is kind of like having a learner's permit. This is how we're going to make sure you learn how to use social media safely. And I want to just be clear that monitoring your child's phone and social media use is not a violation of privacy. It is effective and smart parenting. But I would always suggest having a conversation first with your kids and letting them know the very clear expectations and boundaries, and let them know you will be monitoring their phone. Whether that's, random checks or through an app like Teen Safe, which is an app that allows parents to monitor their kids' phone. The reason you have to have that conversation first is because if you just randomly one day take their phone and go through it, they are going to feel like their trust has been violated. So that's why go in, don't try to be sneaky, right? Like Carolyn said, catch them being good. Go through their social media use and see that they've been listening and practicing safe things. So with that social media, I did want to talk about an app that's super popular, especially with the kids I work with. It's Discord. And Discord is so interesting because it actually allows kids to be connecting based on shared interests or shared experiences. And not just kids, there's adults too, but there's servers. So you can connect over having, the same interest in a certain video game, or living with a different ability, being part of the LGBTQ plus community. You can connect with other people your age, and it creates a wonderful sense of community in a time where we're not getting that connection because of the pandemic. Now, again, monitor. Kids will always be able to find ways to be unsafe, so you just have to monitor, and you can accept friend requests from people things like that. There's privacy settings you can set. But something that's really cool about Discord is that it makes those group movie nights just a little more accessible. One person who has Netflix can actually share their screen with anyone that's in their server. So you can actually do a movie night, and it doesn't even have to be Netflix. It could be Hulu, whatever you have access to. And now that's a way for several kids to watch the same movie, and then you can pop popcorn and they can connect without actually being together in person. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm writing all this stuff down. Again, as I've said twice already, I wish I would have known this stuff years ago. It's just great information. Although I know things change, but it's definitely great information, and it gives parents an opportunity to allow their kids to still have their independence and have an app and share with other friends. I mean, I guess the days of going outside and being out till dark are gone. So this is their way of kind of sharing with each other. So it's nice to see that there's some apps that do work for the kids in a positive way. Anyone else on that one? I know this is I don't want to touch this one because I'm probably going to get in trouble with social media, but.
I think that.
Oh, go ahead, Sean.
Okay. I think the internet has definitely evolved. The generation, as you were sharing before, where there was no social media or internet, we would tell our children to stay away from the internet, right? But now, especially in this year, we're kind of gravitating towards it. But I think that there are new ways, as Caitlin was sharing, to be able to connect in safe ways. And for the parents, because I know that the rabbit hole of technology can feel really overwhelming. There are so many different apps now. There's so many different new programs now where you can monitor and parallel what your child is viewing. Let's say, for example, you want to limit the time frames, because we know that with internet use, of course, we can get into the territory of overuse and internet addiction, which causes a whole set of other mental health issues. But you can limit the time that your child is spending on some of these devices or social media. And so as much as internet somewhat is harmful, it actually can help at the same time. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. But I think the more information that you have and the more communication that you have with your child, the better it can function in your household and be helpful and fun for your family as well.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of piggyback off Shauna and Caitlin with that. I think also, again, I'm going to drive this point home all night, is about connection and communication. A lot of times as adults, I even have a habit sometimes with my teens where I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you on? But really trying to understand that social media platform, ask open-ended questions. So I heard about this TikTok thing. What do you like about it? And next thing that leads into them showing you. And then, the next thing that could lead into is you talking about, well, hey, I saw that one video. I didn't really like that. What did you think about that? Do you think that's healthy? What are some suggestions that you have for that person who posted that? And what that does is that, again, is connecting you with your child and allowing you to help them problem solve, so that they'll get into a habit of, if they see something inappropriate or something wrong, they're more likely to come to you and say, hey, mom or dad, I noticed this on the app. I didn't really like that. Thank you for bringing it up. Let's have a conversation about that as a family. So again, I always tell parents it's okay to be concerned about social media, but also knowing the world is evolving. And even, for me, I'm a millennial. I feel old. I'm still trying to keep up. Every day I have a client that I'm researching. What is that? What's that song? What's that app? But getting to kind of understand their world and create that open line of communication so that you are empowering them to make healthy decisions.
Oh, there we go. It's funny. You said their last sentence. I was actually going to ask you, what I keep hearing tonight is empowering our kids. So I won't go any more because you already hit that there. And then letting them be part of the process, decision making. You mentioned earlier about allowing them to ask questions if they're going to meet with a therapist or somebody, and allow them to be part of that process. And I'm guessing it's because it allows them to feel like they're not being pushed onto that. I don't know if I'm saying this right, that they're not being forced to do this. They're giving it a chance to choose who they can see and who they can't see, and feel more comfortable with that person. I know for me, you mentioned you're a millennial. I won't even tell you where I'm at. It's one of the letters in the alphabet, and unfortunately, it's not one of the last couple. So I grew up with, this is how it's going to be. I know better than you. I'm the parent, and you're not, and I'm smarter than you. And unfortunately, I took a lot of those same, and I think a lot of our parents have taken a lot of those same words and sayings and have kind of pushed them onto our kids. But we are living in a new society where we have to allow our kids to express themselves and be part of the process. So I appreciate you saying that, because I know for me, I have to hear that, and I know for other parents, it's important for them to hear that. So.
Right. And Frank, I want to kind of jump in because you brought up a very valid point. I was also raised very old school, and those values are still very important. But I think a lot of times when we all reflect back, and this is some intergenerational trauma that I kind of work with clients, especially young adults, looking back, there's moments when we wish we did have a voice. I know I can recall a few. And I think it's important, children, it's our ultimate goal as adults, professionals, parents, that we're guiding them to be independent, functioning individuals in the world that are out to help and empower others. And so along the way, though we're there to instill things in them, we also want to push to empower them to think for themselves, to problem solve for themselves, because one day, as sad as it is, we're not going to be there for them, and it's going to be up to them. And I think you know, control. A lot of times we see pushback, those power struggles with a child, you know, where they don't want to wear their shirt, they don't want to do this, and it's because they feel they have no voice. So finding those just small, you know, key moments in your day to day. A prime example I do with some of my younger kids, you know, parents will say, oh, they're, you know, it's a struggle to get snack time or, you know, to get dressed, you know, pre-pick out an outfit, you know, a blue shirt or a red shirt. You, the parent, you technically made the decision and picked it out. But hey, here's a blue shirt or red shirt. Which one do you want to choose? You choose. That small little moment will take a kid, wow, I have a choice. Well, I'll take the red today. Perfect. Everyone's happy. You know, snack time. Hey, you can either have an apple or orange. Which one would you like? Well, I want a banana. Well, the choices are today are apple or orange. So you let me know what you would like. I'll take an apple. Bingo. With our teens, you know, well, I want to go, you know, I want to stay up late till 11. Okay, well, we can do 10:30, or you can do your normal time of 9. Which one would you like? I guess I'll take the 10:30, you know? So these are just small moments, but the more we give our child that autonomy, that little bit of control, it, believe it or not, it strengthens the relationship and it allows them to feel validated as an individual.
And
Awesome.
to
Good. Go.
I'm sorry.
Carolyn, you go.
Well, I just didn't want to let Frank get away with this some letter back in, you know, before. No, because I'm older than dirt, and you know, and we got to just lay that out there. And I was raised. There is a final absolute. The no is no. We still have that responsibility as parents. There comes a time when ultimately it is our total and complete responsibility to protect our child no matter what. That doesn't mean we can't explain what we see the danger as. No, we're not going to discuss your opinion because right now this, you know, I respect you, I love you, and I trust you. But you have to give me the same thing. My job is to protect you. And ultimately, that's all we can do. By taking that stand, by showing that we are, if you will, brave enough to do that, we're setting an example for our own children to go out and know that they have to take stands in the world to be helpful, caring, fully recognized people that are going to be able to raise another generation.
Caitlin, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you. Caitlin, do you have something to add?
Yeah, just a really quick, bringing it back to earlier, I was talking about those circles of control. And so when Ariel was talking about giving kids options, that is kind of the concept of the circles of control, right? Whatever we can add to our inner circle, which is what we control, we're going to feel more grounded and calm. And I keep using the word in control, but we're going to be in control. And so let children have that option of what color outfit they get to pick, things like that. And then what's in the outer circle, you can come up with as a parent, but in the outer circle, the kids are not going to get to control necessarily the rules that you set, right? Because you ultimately are in that protective position.
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you explaining that even better too. And Carolyn, yes, I heard you call me out on that. That was good as far as what. So and we'll discuss that on another program at another time. So thank you. I appreciate you doing that. So the next question I have for you, and this is going to be directed at Ariel, and then of course everyone can jump in. This is a pretty, these all are important questions, and I think a lot of them are things we deal with every day. This one's a very heavy question. So, and I'm going to try to, it's a long question, so I'll try to get through it here. The latest research from the CDC shows that rates of suicide have not increased during the pandemic, but what has increased are suicidal thoughts and elevated levels of adverse mental health issues. What message do you have for students and those who are dealing with suicidal thoughts?
Well, first off, Frank, thank you. And thank you for whoever asked that question, because it's such an important topic that we are seeing during this global pandemic for young people. And number one, addressing students. The message that I want you to walk away if you are watching this is that if you're struggling with suicidal ideation, you are not alone. Suicide ideation, it impacts and it occurs for individuals from all walks of life. It's not just segregated to one age population, gender, ethnicity, culture, or race. And the truth of the matter, especially with this global pandemic, is that life is tough. For students, the pressure of performing academically, fitting in with your peers, finding out, who you are as an individual, getting along with parents and your siblings, surviving feeling isolated. That's a big thing that we're kind of seeing for children and teens, and even for parents. Not having that human connection and interaction with family and others. These are just a few examples of stressors that students and many others are battling in this very moment. And often these stressors can make you feel hopeless, powerless, and worthless. So on today's panel, I really wanted to provide some tips on handling suicidal ideation. So number one, knowing the signs is imperative to addressing it. Um, a lot of times the signs are missed and they're subtle, and they're also different for each person. So I want, students and parents who are watching to be able to know the signs for a friend, for themselves, or for a family member. So a big thing is change in mood. So observed and noticeable increase in depression, sadness, anxiousness, anger, or overall just seeming very fatigued, or a sense of hopelessness or worthlessness. Changes in behavior, so exact behavior that not just the mood, but what you're seeing that a teen or a child is kind of engaging in. So sudden changes in eating, sleeping habits. So maybe they're eating less or more. Maybe they're sleeping less or more. Withdraw from family and friends. So not wanting to go outside when they can. Not wanting to, spend time and do family night. Lack of interest in preferred activities. So those activities that they do like, maybe it's roadblocks or, Among Us. Not wanting to do those things as much. And a big one as well to look out for is decline in school performance. So if you're a student or you're a parent and you have a student who went from stellar grades and all of a sudden we're seeing, D's and F's, definitely kind of looking more closely at other behaviors. And most importantly, what you'll see with suicidal ideation, and this is the one that's often missed, is a change in conversation. So direct or indirect comments regarding suicide in the form of verbal or even online, text message, social media, if they're drawing seem darker than normal, poems, music, all of those things that you're kind of observing, talking about feelings of guilt, shame, or hopelessness out loud, or again, posting those things or mentioning them to peers, talking or wishing about death, or even researching or asking about ways to die, or how do people die. Researching weapons is another one. My step number 2 is, once you know the signs, having honest conversations. So first I want to kind of address with students. If you're experiencing suicidal ideation, I want you to reach out and have an honest discussion and share how you're feeling with someone you trust. So that could be a coach, one of your teachers, a youth group leader at your church, a parent, a mentor, one of your close friends, your therapist, if you have one. Those are all great support networks that you can utilize and can be resources in sharing how you're feeling. talking about suicide can be uncomfortable. It can be worrisome. It can be embarrassing. But I want you to know, again, you're not alone. There are many people who are experiencing and feeling that. And talking about your thoughts and feelings regarding suicidal ideation is helpful. It helps you feel supported by those that are closest to you. And it allows you to start making an action plan, what we call in the therapy world a safety plan that you can use when you're experiencing those type of thoughts. And then I want to address this to parents. I recently wrote a blog for our practice Revolutionary Change, and the topic was addressing the S word in the room. A lot of times there's a huge stigma when it comes to suicide and suicidal ideation, that if you discuss it, you're enticing it, or you're going to increase the risk. And I really want you to know that though it's hard to discuss the idea of suicide with your child or teen, it can be extremely beneficial, and actually it's recommended. Learning about it and discussing suicidal ideation with the child or a teen, it helps prevent these strategies from happening, but it also normalizing it. It increases the chance that your child, will continue to come to you to discuss if they are having these thoughts and reach out for support if needed. As well, parents learning about it for yourself empowers you so that you are aware, not just for your child, but others in your family, or even your children's or teens' friends, their peer groups. It allows you to be empowered to be aware of potential signs. And number 3, if you are experiencing, suicidal ideation and intense thoughts of harming yourself, seek help. I want you to know, and I'm very passionate about this topic, I want you to know you do not have to struggle in silence, and you don't have to struggle alone. There are people out here who are willing to help and support you, and there are resources. And Frank, I want to provide some resources to everyone who is kind of watching today, especially for our Hillsborough County and Tampa Bay area. There is a crisis line. It's 211. And you can reach this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call it on, on your telephone, your landline phone, and you can also even contact 211 through your cell phone. The Tampa Bay Crisis Center also has a website, thecrisiscenter.com, and they also have a chat feature. So that's available from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. And with that chat feature, it's pretty awesome because they have crisis center intervention specialists that are trained, trauma informed, and they're waiting to support you if you are having a mental health crisis that's involving suicide or suicidal ideation. As well as for parents and students, there are 2 apps that I recommend that I recently researched and kind of found out about that are awesome. So the first one is called A Friend Ask. And it's available on Android and iPhone. It's absolutely free, and it has information and tools and resources that allows you to help yourself or a friend who may be struggling with thoughts of suicide. And then the second one, which is also available on Android and iPhone and is free, is My3. So MY and then the number 3. And this allows you to create, which I think is awesome, a digital safety plan. So it can allow you to feel prepared to help yourself and reach out to others when you're having thoughts of suicide or if you're experiencing suicidal ideation. And Frank, the last kind of nugget I really want to share with everyone who is watching. If you are struggling with suicidal ideation, or if you're just struggling in general with this pandemic, and if no one has told you today, I want you to know you are loved, that you matter, and you're more than enough. I think we talked about validation a little bit early, but sometimes we need to hear those words. And life is tough for all of us in different ways. But I want everyone to know out there, so are you. You're equally tough. You're more tough than life. And if you're struggling, again, you don't have to struggle alone. You don't have to struggle in silence. And most importantly, you don't deserve to struggle at all. And so there are resources out there for you. I know in the Hillsborough County, there's amazing therapists that are available, but I want to shout out my own group, at Revolutionary. We're trauma informed, and those who are struggling, students, adults, young or old, we are here, and we hear you, and we understand how tough life can be, and we want to be able to support you. So if you're struggling with suicidal ideation, I want you to know, reach out today to those who you trust.
Wow, thank you so much. I wrote down all of that because I think it's invaluable information. It needs to continue to be shared. I know you mentioned the crisis line. It's something that I continue to hear every year, but it's something that we just have to continue to tell more and more people, and continue to post it and let people know that there are resources. There are people out there willing to and waiting to talk to you. And I loved what you said at the end. It's so important to tell everyone, not just our students, but our loved ones, our friends, that you matter, that we love you, that we are here for you. I mean, I know as PTA parents and caregivers, I tell them all the time. Sometimes it's as simple as giving a kid a high five or a pat on the back, or telling them great job. That may mean the world to them, and especially when it's the time that you give them and the attention. So thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to add on to that at all? That was wonderful, but I'm sure we all have. Okay, that's not a problem because we still have a couple left. So all right, so we have two left, and this one's going to be directed to Ms. Shauna Wilson. Another long one. I'll try to get through this and make sure it sounds, there's some clarity to the way I read this. The challenges of virtual learning, there we go with virtual learning, or worries about students missing valuable instruction time can be overwhelming for parents who didn't see any end in sight for this pandemic. How can a parent support their child emotionally during the pandemic to their kids? What can parents do to reduce their stress levels? How can parents support students to navigate e-learning?
This is such a great question, and I think we covered a little bit of it earlier on, but this has been such a unique year across the board because as parents, we now became teachers. And as I said before, give yourself some grace. We all, as parents, if we're not teachers, we have other professions that, being a teacher, we weren't prepared for in this 2020 of the year. But one piece that's really helpful for parents is accepting that you're going to make mistakes, and that this is a new role and this is a new space for you to support your student in an academic way. But your first role is their parent. And I think once you get to that place of acceptance that, no matter what, I am still your parent. I'm a teacher for 2020, 2021 school year, but I'm still your parent. I think that helps get over the hurdle of some of the e-learning challenges that are happening. Another piece, just really quickly, is setting schedules during the day. We shared about this as well too, that having a structured routine is really, really helpful for your entire family. So even if it means we're doing like a mindful meditation moment early in the day, that's really, really helpful. And it helps provide stability emotionally. And those things help your child's overall mental health so that they can focus on the school day, be it if it's e-learning or brick and mortar. So having a set routine that, every day at 2:30, I have a break from working from home remotely. My child has a break. Let's go take a walk or do something in nature. Those consistent daily set schedules are monumental for navigating this new virtual learning that all parents are working through. Next piece that's really, really helpful, because communication is so important, especially because we're hearing so much information social media, the news. As parents, we're all really, really overwhelmed with hearing so much information. I like to say information overload we're in these days. But with that, I think it's really important to be translational as a parent, meaning that with all of the information that we're getting, how can we dissect that to be age appropriate to our child, where they understand that we're learning 2020 as they're learning 2020, and to begin to practice the habit of translating messages that are more complex, and then you can meet them where they are. Another thing that's really helpful, and I encourage families to do this a lot, is do a daily activity where you actually physically have to do something that speaks to your mental health and checking in. So one thing that you can do is, it's really simple, really easy. You can do this on your refrigerator at home, but you can do just a feelings check-in for the day. Red is a not so good day. Yellow is a meh, as I like to say with the teens, kind of day. And then green is a great day. That's a really great way to keep communication really open and really public within the household. But it's also a good way to see how your child is coping. Maybe there's a really busy week. Maybe final exams are coming up. Maybe there's a big test. On those days, we really want to check what's on the refrigerator, because that can be an indicator that we need to check in with our child a bit more. And so those days that are yellow days or red days, we really want to make sure that we're validating, that we're listening, that we're supportive, that we are providing them with some coping skills, which that's what makes therapy so great, is parents and students can learn along the way. But you can really support your child as they're having difficulty by encouraging them to utilize those coping skills. And then the last piece that's really helpful is being able to separate your own junk, right? I like to use the analogy as parents, everyone has kind of like this trash can container that we're walking around with every day. It's stress of the day, cares of the world, issues of life, all that stuff kind of happening, and really, really monitoring your trash can each day, because your mental health is separate from your child's mental health. And you don't want your junk bin to fill up so much that you start projecting it onto your child, because it can cause some challenges for them. So really being able to be the thermostat of your household, where you're regulating your emotions, you're mindful of your emotions as well, because your children, they adapt based upon you managing your mental health on any given day.
Thank you very, very much. I'm just writing all this down. I know somebody already put on here, this is a great replay. I'm going to have to watch this again just so I can get all this information again. It's so good. It really, really is. We're so appreciative of you guys all coming on and sharing your knowledge. And you're really hitting some key areas that we all suffer with and we all deal with every single day. And I know I'm appreciative, and I've learned so much. We have come to our last question. It was only 8 questions, but I mean, we put an hour and 20 minutes into this almost. So this last one is actually directed for Ms. Carolyn, and of course we open it up after that. Now, before I ask this question, yes, everybody's like, what, Frank, what? This was a question that was kind of brought up at a meeting I attended, a Zoom meeting on Monday night, from a student who asked, where is the action behind all these words? What are we actually doing? What are our schools actually doing, and not just telling us to do? What can they do? And of course, there's always boundaries for our teachers and our APs and our principals. So this actually came from a student. So what can school principals and assistant principals do on campus to meet student needs for their mental health? So in parentheses, i.e. understanding triggers, warning signs, and provision of mental health services. And then the second part of that is, what action steps can be taken by administration to support the needs of the students in and out of the classroom?
I didn't realize that question came from a student. That's phenomenal. That's fantastic. Well, I kind of understand why it would be generated by a student. You know, it's pretty astounding, Frank, to realize that in every classroom, in every school, in every district in this country, there is at least one child struggling with mental illness. That's a pretty overwhelming concept, really. Actually, I did some research, and I read the past few days and looked into Hillsborough County's mental health plan. And I just want to say it's really, really thorough, in my opinion. I think what this student is asking, though, is how do we translate the words into actions? That's, you know, the kind of thing that we are up against. Where do we get the trickle-down effect? I have to say I came up with a few ideas. First of all, we want to offer education to parents and students about all the types of mental health issues and the effective treatments that are out there. Amongst the four of us that are sitting here right now, it is part of our ethical responsibilities, not just to be counselors, but also to provide psychoeducation. So that's true for all of the mental health professionals that are already in existence on the school campuses. Everything we see says all the kinds of existing student and programmatic data suggests that professional development is what's needed for teachers and staff and administrators and the service personnel and the district personnel to support this mental health awareness. And it's there. The initiatives are there. But then you've got these poor people that kind of get the rap. The principals, they're the gatekeepers in a lot of ways of what goes on in their actual schools. And I think the big responsibility that the principals have is to make sure that that trickle down happens, that their teachers and all school personnel are engaged and are buying into the necessity. And we're seeing that more and more. You know, I hate to say that this, I don't want to be misunderstood, but in a way, I think that COVID has made us so much more aware of the mental health problems that are going on amongst our schools, because it's caused this focus. I mean, it's been growing over the last 20 years with school shootings, but we've had to do something in this last few years. I mean, in this last year particularly, which is what simple things. Are the health numbers of the health numbers, like Ariel brought up, those crisis numbers, and I think even Hillsborough County Schools has a crisis number as well. Are those numbers on the whiteboards of every single classroom? If not, how long would it take to write them there? Encouraging the teens to advocate for themselves. There's an estimated 32% of all adolescents who have some type of an anxiety disorder. That's according to the National Institute of Mental Health. During the last 9 months since COVID, 12% of the youth between 12 and 17 say that they have experienced at least one major depressive episode. So, you know, okay, if we're going to call the principals the gatekeepers, and this, I hear the students asking, I can quote the statistics, but what are you going to do about it? Well, one thing is that principals can respond by offering, and I'm such an advocate of this, universal screenings for depression. Pediatricians are doing it more and more. But if we could get this done universally in the school depression checkups at least once a year. Triage, and that's item number one. The second thing, what I would say, would be to triage mental health concerns based on student needs on the populations in those particular schools, because there are trends among certain populations. Certain, and this, you know, this is stereotyping, but in this case, it's kind of necessary. In communities around the country with heavy gang activity, you're going to get more bullying type of results. One very, very startling thing. What about the marginalized populations within the schools? We have talked a little bit about the LGBTQ communities. I was absolutely astounded to find out that amongst middle schoolers who identify as transgender, there is 40% less suicidal ideation manifested by children who are addressed by their preferred pronouns. All somebody has to do is address them by their preferred pronouns. They feel validated. Advocating, of course, for better access to mental health professionals at the schools, providing more of the education, stronger and stronger and stronger partnerships with local mental health agencies. I can't emphasize that enough. Reaching out to local NAMI affiliates. Of course, we know ideally a school needs a team of mental health professors, I can't talk here, now it's my turn, professionals that ideally are going to start with a school psychologist. They're going to have a social worker. They're going to have counselors who are trained in mental health counseling. They're going to have a data specialist, because we need that data, partnerships with community mental health providers, and professional development for the staff. Bring it all back to the psychoeducation, because that's going to help the students and their parents understand the mental disorders better and the options that are available for them in the school system. Psychoeducation is the best type of investment. And I think finally, and something that cannot be overemphasized, is reminding the teachers to watch and listen. Just watch and listen. And I think that's the best we can hope for. Anybody have anything?
Yeah. No, I was trying to get off there. Yeah. Is there anyone else who wants to add to that? That was amazing. And again, writing all this stuff down.
Absolutely, Carolyn, that was so eloquently put. I think your plan is amazing that you offered those solutions. And I wanted to kind of piggyback off something you said about listening to your students. And I think that first, whoever that student is, I feel like you are going big places. Definitely, that was a wonderful question. But that key part about what can school principals and assistants, you know, the top people in the school, what can they do to meet mental health needs? And I think it's understanding what is impacting mental health. You know, mental health is an umbrella. You know, we talk about anxiety, depression, you know, PTSD, all of these things, those diagnoses, but they don't define identity. They don't define experience. They're just meant to guide treatment. So I think understanding the issues, the LGBTQI community, very important of understanding, you know, like Carolyn beautifully put, addressing them as appropriate pronouns. Understanding their experience and resources that are needed, that are limited within the school environment. For our BIPOC, Black, Indigenous community and children and teens of color, the Black children as well. It's very important of addressing those root issues. Aside from a whole global pandemic, we had a racial pandemic that's been going on in our country for decades and, you know, years. With George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, addressing those, even in Zoom classes, you know, not just going as business as normal, but when class is starting, checking in with the students and saying, hey, I know something very traumatic happened, and I want to take a moment to check in. How are you? Simply doing that is addressing mental health. Sometimes we feel mental health has to be, big posters, big things, but it's little small efforts that we can be doing to be supporting our students of all walks of life, and as professionals and as, teachers and educators. So I think really understanding the zip code of the school. What are some issues? Is it economic trauma? Is it lack of resources? Once we understand those things, it opens a gateway for us to continue to support mental health.
I'd like to jump in. Earlier, when we first started this panel, Ariel said something along the lines of mental health being so stigmatized still. And to answer that student's question, what can administration do to put their action or their words into action? Normalize mental health. So Ariel's point to teachers addressing racial issues or anything else that's going on that's a major issue, that's normalizing mental health by checking in, are you okay? That's going to normalize it. And Carolyn had said something about psychoeducation for staff. I do think that it should be mandatory that all staff attend trauma-informed care training. I often see teachers get caught up in their own emotions and raise their voices, and they don't mean to. What they don't realize, though, is they're actually triggering many students who have maybe an adult at home that yells at them, and they're triggering them to shut down or maybe lash out. So that trauma-informed care is so, so, so important. And my final point is that administration has to be mindful of how many responsibilities they're giving to the emotional support staff, such as school counselors, and not bogging them down with tasks that don't actually have to do with the emotional support of students and their academic support, because then you're just taking them away from students who really need that support.
Thank you all. Thank you very, very much. That was, yeah, it was a student. I can say that student was actually at my son's school too, but that's as much as I can brag about that one. But I was very proud of the student for the question. I think it was very, they were very bold in asking that question. And all these questions are amazing. And I'm so thankful for each one of you spending a good portion of your night, an hour and a half of your night, sharing with our groups, our caretakers, our parents, and hopefully our students, things that are going on. We can struggle with it. We can allow it to consume us, and until we hear that, in some ways, as you said, some of the stuff, it's normal things that are going on, but we just have to learn how to cope with them. We have to learn to reach out. We have to learn to deal with them. It doesn't take that. It doesn't. The value of what you're giving won't set in. So I think it was a great, productive hour and a half of what you guys offered. So I'm going to stop stuttering here, and I want to go ahead and close this out. One thing I did notice, we went an hour and a half without a dog barking. I thought that was amazing. So, Mishana, you said little wins. That was a little win, right? No dogs barking. I thought that was great. I was told I had to do this or I would be in trouble. Miss Melinda Vasterling was the one who set this up for our Hillsborough County Council PTA. She is she is one of our wonderful advocates on there. And we want to say thank you so much to Melinda for doing this. And again, Melinda, you knocked it out of the park by finding this panel of ladies. So thank you for that. And thank you all who are out there watching for giving us an hour and a half of your life. I know it's a long time to ask, but I think it went by so quick because of so much great information. For those of you who didn't catch the name, the group that they work with is Revolution Change Counseling, excuse me. I think Amy Marie posted it. I think it was posted a few times. Please reach out to them, even if it's to say thank you.